In January of 1890, 36 riders crossed the Montana high country looking for a railroad baron's missing daughter. All 36 returned without her. By the fifth dawn, Helena's newspapers were already setting her name in mourning type. But 40 miles beyond the last search camp, a poor widowed packer stopped beside a drift and saw one impossible thing: a chip of blue carriage glass flashing beneath 6 feet of snow. Before nightfall, he would find Lydia Harrow alive, not rescued, not safe. Alive, because she had spent 4 nights refusing to die. The storm had come down from the Bitterroot Range like a door slamming shut. Telegraph wires sagged beneath ice. Fir trees cracked in the dark. The road over McDonald Pass vanished so completely that men who had traveled it for 20 years could not agree where it had been. In Helena, Gideon Harrow paced the upstairs office of the Harrow Exchange Bank with a telegram crushed in one fist. His daughter had left St. Louis 3 weeks earlier. The train carried her as far as Butte. From there, a private coach was supposed to bring her home for the winter assembly at the territorial governor's residence. Lydia was 22. She had spent 5 years being taught how a woman of means should enter a room, pour tea, speak French, and choose a husband who could strengthen a family name. Gideon had planned every detail of her return: the white satin gown, the orchestra, the introductions, the young men whose fathers owned mines, timber, or rail. He had not planned for the mountains. The final message came from a station west of the divide. Coach passed at 3, wheeler turning. Driver insisted on continuing. After that, the line went dead. Gideon offered $5,000 to the man who brought Lydia home. It was enough money to buy a fine ranch, stock it, and live without debt. Men came from Deer Lodge, Butte, and the Blackfoot camps. Former cavalry scouts, freight drivers, deputy marshals, hunters who claimed they could follow a wolf across bare stone. 36 riders pushed into the pass. They found one dead team horse near a ravine. They found a trunk split open against a pine. They found no coach, and they found no Lydia. By the third night, frostbite had blackened 2 men's fingers. Another rider came back tied to his saddle, half-conscious and unable to remember his own name. The lead scout stood in Gideon's bank beneath brass lamps and gave him the truth. No one stays alive up there after 4 nights. Gideon stared at the man as though wealth itself had been insulted. Then take more blankets. We did. More horses. We changed teams twice. More men. The scout removed his hat. Mr. Harrow, the mountain is not short of men. It was the first time in Gideon's life that an answer had not changed when he added money. That same morning, the Helena Chronicle printed Lydia's portrait beneath a black border. The headline called her the Lost Rose of Harrow House. The city began grieving a young woman most people had never met. 40 miles away, Owen Mercer was splitting frozen kindling outside a one-room cabin under the western shoulder of the pass. Owen owned 2 pack mules, a cedar sled, 6 steel traps, and a roof that leaked whenever the snow turned wet. He had been a freight packer before the fever took his wife, Miriam, 3 winters earlier. Since then, he had raised their 8-year-old daughter, Nell, alone. Nell had Miriam's dark eyes and Owen's habit of studying the ground before speaking. That morning, she watched him lace rawhide over his snowshoes. "Mrs. Pike says the pass took a rich lady," she said. Owen pulled the knot tight. "The pass doesn't take people." Nell frowned. "Then what does? Bad weather, bad choices, sometimes bad luck, and sometimes—" Owen looked toward the white ridge. "Sometimes people stop looking too soon." He left Nell with Mrs. Pike, an elderly widow who lived half a mile down the creek. Then he took a coil of rope, a bedroll, dried meat, a small iron pot, and his old buffalo coat. He said he was checking a trap line. He did not say that the night before, one of his mules had come home alone with a fresh leather cut across its shoulder. Something large had broken through the timber above the creek. Something with iron fittings. Owen climbed for 3 hours. The sky had cleared, but the cold had sharpened. Every breath burned. Loose snow hissed across the ridge like sand. Near a stand of lodgepole pine, he found a brass buckle half buried in ice. 20 yards higher, there was a strip of varnished ashwood, then nothing. Most men searched by looking forward. Owen looked downhill. A coach leaving the road on that slope would not fall in a straight line. It would strike the buried shoulder of the mountain, twist, and shed pieces sideways before dropping into the ravine. He moved across the slope instead of down it. That was when he saw the flash, a triangle of cobalt glass, no larger than a thumbnail, blinking from a wind-carved pocket in the drift. He dug with both hands until he uncovered the bent frame of a carriage lamp. The search parties had crossed within 80 yards of it. They had been looking for a coach. Owen began looking for everything the coach had lost: a bolt, a splinter, a torn strip of green wool, one iron shoe. The evidence led him to the granite cut beneath the ridge. There, buried under a cornice of snow, lay the wreck. The coach had rolled twice and struck the rock hard enough to tear the rear axle away. One wheel stood upright in the drift. The passenger compartment had collapsed inward. The driver and the guard were dead beneath the broken roof. Owen removed his hat, then he heard it, not a voice. A scrape so faint he first thought ice was shifting against stone. He followed it around the wreck and saw a strip of black canvas tied across the mouth of a narrow cleft. Inside, a woman lay curled between two coach cushions. Her traveling dress had once been forest green. Now it was stiff with blood, snow, and soot. She had packed horsehair from the seat around her boots. She had wrapped her hands in pages torn from a timetable. A silver serving tray rested beside her with a skin of melted snow in it. The canvas windbreak had been fastened to the rock with a broken harness pin. This was not someone waiting to be saved. This was someone building one more hour at a time. Owen crawled into the cleft and touched 2 fingers to her throat. Nothing. He waited. Then one weak beat, another. Her eyelids trembled. "Don't sleep," Owen said. Her lips moved. He leaned closer. "My father is coming." Owen looked at the wreck, the dead men, and the empty white ridge. Then he said the only thing that might keep her with him: "Yes, he is." He lifted her from the cleft. She weighed almost nothing. By then the wind had begun turning west again. A gray veil was building over the peak. Owen knew he could not carry her all the way to the creek before dark. Half a mile below the wreck was an abandoned prospecting adit, little more than a horizontal wound in the mountain, but dry, protected, and stocked with a bundle of cedar Owen had cached there for emergencies. He carried Lydia to it in stages. 20 steps, rest. 20 more, rest. By the time he reached the adit, his knees were shaking, and the left side of his beard had frozen to his scarf. He built a small fire, not a roaring one. He removed her frozen boots and wrapped her feet in dry wool. He placed warm stones near her body, never against bare skin. He fed her broth 1 spoonful at a time. For 2 hours she did not wake. Then she opened her eyes and recoiled from him so violently that her shoulder struck the rock. Owen moved back at once. "My name is Owen Mercer," he said. "Your coach went off the pass." Her gaze searched the adit. "The others?" Owen did not soften the truth. "I found no one else alive." She closed her eyes. No tears came. There was not enough water left in her for tears. He held the cup where she could see it. "Drink." She took 1 swallow and began coughing slowly. She looked at his rough coat, his cracked hands, the scar across his thumb. "Are you with the search party?" "No." "Then why are you here?" Owen glanced toward the storm, whitening the mouth of the adit. "Because I saw a piece of glass." The answer seemed too small for what had happened. That was exactly why she believed it. For the next 2 days the mountain closed around them. Lydia drifted in and out of fever. Sometimes she spoke to Owen as if he were her father. Sometimes she called for a woman named Catherine, her mother dead 6 years. Owen kept the fire alive, melted snow, and measured time by the broth she could hold down. He did not tell her she was improving. He counted it: 6 spoonfuls, 10, half a cup, 3 steps to the wall, 7 steps back. On the second night she woke to the sound of leather tearing. Owen sat by the fire trying to repair the binding on his left snowshoe with fingers too numb for the work. Beside him lay a small canvas tool roll. Lydia watched him open it and stop. Inside was a bone-handled awl, waxed thread, and a narrow knife polished almost white from years of use. "My wife's," he said. He had not meant to explain. Lydia understood from the way he touched the handle that the tool carried more than a name. "May I?" Owen looked at her trembling hands. "You can barely hold the cup." "Then I should begin with something smaller than a mountain." A breath of laughter escaped him before he could stop it. He handed her the awl. She had been taught embroidery on silk, not how to drive waxed thread through rawhide. Her first stitch went crooked. The second caught the edge. The third held. Owen showed her how to cross the seam so the strain pulled against itself. "That knot has to work when you're tired," he said. "Most of my education was designed to work when other people were watching." "No one's watching now." She looked at him across the fire. "I know." By morning the binding was ugly and strong. Owen turned it over in his hands. Miriam would have approved. It was the first time he had spoken his wife's name. Lydia smiled. It was the first time she had smiled since the crash. The weather broke on the 3rd day. Far below, harness bells carried through the valley. Gideon Harrow had refused to accept the official end of the search. He found 8 men willing to ride out once more, then led them himself, despite having spent most of his life behind a desk. Their faces were gray with exhaustion when they reached the wreck. Gideon climbed down from his horse and stared at the shattered coach. For several seconds he could not move. Then Owen appeared above the ravine with Lydia leaning against him. She wore Owen's buffalo coat over her ruined dress. A strip of wool covered her hair. Her face was bruised and colorless. But she was walking. Gideon fell to both knees in the snow. He did not call her name like a banker. He called it like a frightened father. Lydia. She crossed the clearing and collapsed into his arms. The riders shouted. One man wept openly. Another turned away and removed his hat. Owen stood at the edge of the timber, suddenly unnecessary. Gideon saw him and pulled the reward purse from inside his coat. $5,000 in banknotes and gold certificates. He held it out with both hands. Take it. Owen looked at the purse, then at Lydia. No. Gideon's face tightened. You misunderstand. This was promised. I heard. You saved my only child. I found a person in the snow, and I am paying you for it. Owen's voice stayed level. That is exactly what I will not take money for. The clearing went quiet. Gideon had spent his life learning the price of land, ore, timber, votes, silence, and loyalty. He had never met a man who refused to be entered in a ledger. Lydia stepped between them. Father. The single word carried warning. Gideon lowered the purse, but humiliation burned across his face. While the riders prepared a litter, Lydia walked with Owen to the trees. From beneath her collar, she drew a small silver compass on a black ribbon. My mother gave me this before she died, she said. She told me a compass is useful when the world disappears. She placed it in his palm. I can't take this. It is not payment. Then what is it? For Nell. Owen looked up. Lydia had heard him speak his daughter's name during the fever, tell her it belonged to a woman who came home because her father kept walking. Owen closed his fingers around the compass. Then Lydia surprised him. She took the repaired snowshoe binding from his pack and touched the crooked stitches. That is proof I did something useful. It is proof you nearly ruined a good snowshoe. She laughed once, and the sound followed him into the timber after the riders carried her away. Helena celebrated Lydia Harrow as a miracle. Church bells rang. Carriages lined the avenue outside Harrow House. The governor visited. Newspapers printed every detail they could invent. Lydia attended one reception. Then she stopped going. The satin gown remained in its box. Instead, she asked Gideon to fund 3 winter shelters along the pass, each stocked with dry wood, blankets, lamp oil, and food. He agreed because he was relieved she was alive. He did not understand why the shelters mattered more to her than the ballroom. Lydia also began writing to Owen. At first, the letters were practical. How was the snowshoe binding? Had Nell received the compass? Did Mrs. Pike's rheumatism improve? Owen's replies were shorter. The binding held. Nell wore the compass under her dress. Mrs. Pike said weather hurt less when people stopped asking about it. Then the letters changed. Lydia wrote about the city after midnight, when every grand room felt too large. Owen wrote about the sound of thaw water beneath the creek ice. She sent Nell books. He sent Lydia a small box carved from juniper, its lid shaped like the ridge where he had found the blue glass. The next summer, Lydia traveled to the mountain shelter with supplies. Nell met her at the wagon and stared openly at the fine lady wearing mud on her hem. You gave me the compass, Nell said. I did. It points north. That is its profession. Nell considered this. Papa says north isn't always where you're going. Lydia looked toward Owen, who was unloading flour from the wagon. No, she said softly, it isn't. Over the next 3 years, she returned whenever weather and propriety allowed. The mountain school began in Mrs. Pike's enlarged kitchen with 11 children and 1 slate board. Lydia paid for books but refused to put the Harrow name above the door. Owen repaired the roof. Nell saved Lydia a place beside the stove. No one announced what was happening. The 3 of them simply began arranging their days around one another. Then in the summer of 1893, the country broke. Railroad companies failed, mines cut wages. Banks that had looked permanent on Monday locked their doors by Friday. Gideon Harrow had loaned heavily against a new rail spur and a chain of silver claims. When Eastern money disappeared, the paper behind his fortune turned weightless. Within 6 weeks, depositors packed the street outside Harrow Exchange Bank. They shouted that Gideon had stolen their savings. A stone shattered an upstairs window. Another struck a clerk in the jaw. Gideon stood behind the bank doors with a revolver on the desk and discovered that fear sounds different when it knows your address. Lydia sent 1 telegram west. "Owen, we need a place no one will think to look." He arrived in Helena 2 nights later with a freight wagon, rough clothes for Gideon and no questions. They left through the alley behind the carriage house before dawn. The climb humbled Gideon mile by mile, his city boots filled with mud, his hands blistered on the wagon rail. At the cabin he found no servants, no private room, and no object whose quality announced its cost. There was a pine table, 4 chairs, a black stove, books stacked beneath the window, and the silver compass hanging from a wooden peg beside Nell's coat. Gideon stopped. "Where did you get that?" Nell looked up from her lesson. "Miss Lydia gave it to me." Gideon lifted the compass. Catherine's initials were engraved inside the case, his dead wife's compass, the last gift she had given their daughter. He turned toward Owen. "You had this all along?" Owen set down the water bucket. "It belongs to Nell. How did it leave my daughter's neck?" Lydia rose so quickly her chair struck the wall. "Father." But panic had been feeding Gideon's pride for weeks, and pride will often choose an enemy before it chooses the truth. He stepped toward Owen. "She was unconscious. Alone, you brought her out wearing your coat with her belongings gone." The room changed. Nell moved behind Lydia. Owen did not raise his voice. "Finish what you're saying." Gideon's face had gone red. "I am saying a man can refuse a reward because he has already taken what he wanted." Lydia crossed the room and struck the compass from her father's hand. It hit the pine table with a hard silver crack. "I gave it to Nell." Gideon stared at her. "You did what?" "I gave it freely. I told Owen it was not payment." She pointed toward the door. "This man carried me off a mountain after 36 paid riders turned back. He fed you tonight from food he cannot easily replace, and because you cannot understand a gift, you called him a thief." Gideon's mouth opened. No answer came. Owen picked up the compass and placed it beside Nell's slate. Then he looked at Gideon. A man who measures every kindness as debt eventually believes every hand is reaching into his pocket. Gideon flinched. Owen continued, "That is a cold way to live." He took his coat from the peg and walked out into the dark. Lydia turned away from her father. Nell began to cry without making a sound. Gideon stood in the center of the room and understood that he had brought the poorest thing he owned into the cabin. Not his ruined bank, not his debt, his suspicion. That night he did not sleep. He sat by the stove and watched Nell curl beneath a patchwork quilt Lydia had made for her. The silver compass rested on the table, catching the firelight each time the flames moved. Near dawn, Gideon carried it outside. Owen was splitting lodgepole behind the shed. Gideon set the compass on the chopping block. "I was wrong." Owen brought the maul down. The log cracked. "I know." The answer struck harder than anger would have. Gideon removed his coat. "Give me the other maul." Owen looked at his soft hands. "You'll tear them open. Then they will finally have an honest reason to hurt." Owen said nothing. He handed him the tool. For the next hour, Gideon failed at spsing the wood. The maul glanced sideways. The handle jarred his shoulders. Blisters rose and broke. Blood darkened his palms. Owen did not praise him. He corrected his footing once. "Don't fight the whole log. Read the line that's already there." Gideon looked down at the grain. For 40 years he had forced men, markets, and even his daughter toward lines he had chosen. He adjusted the maul. This time the wood opened cleanly. At breakfast, Gideon sat beside Nell. He placed the compass in front of her. "It is yours." Nell studied him. "I know." Gideon almost smiled. Then he looked at Lydia. "I paid people to teach you everything I thought mattered." She waited. "I do not know what I missed." Lydia reached across the table and took his bandaged hand. "Most of it." The old banker lowered his eyes. "Will you tell me?" So she did. Not all at once. Not kindly at every moment, but honestly. She told him about the years and rooms arranged for display. The suitors whose names mattered more than their character. The night in the cleft when she repeated his name to stay awake, then wondered whether he had ever truly known her. Gideon listened until the stove went cold. It was the first investment of his life that required him to give time without controlling the return. Weeks passed. The violence in Helena cooled. Gideon learned that a portion of the bank could be reopened if he surrendered Harrow House, sold the rail holdings, and repaid depositors before keeping anything for himself. He expected the loss to feel like death. Instead, the mountain stripped the question down. What did a man require? Food, work, a roof, someone who would tell him the truth. One evening, Gideon watched Owen and Lydia repair a section of fence after rain. Lydia's sleeves were rolled above her elbows, mud streaked her cheek. Owen handed her a post without warning, and she caught the weight easily. She no longer looked like the woman Gideon had raised for a ballroom. She looked stronger, alive in a way money had never taught her to be. Later, inside the cabin, Owen took Miriam's canvas tool roll from a shelf. He placed it before Lydia. She touched the bone-handled awl. "I can't take this." Owen looked toward Nell, asleep with a book on her chest. "Tools belong in living hands." Lydia's eyes filled. Owen had saved her life in the snow. This was the first time he had invited her into the life that came after. When word arrived that Gideon could return safely to Helena, he packed one valise. He assumed Lydia would pack another. She did not. She stood on the cabin porch with Nell at one side and Owen at the other. The autumn air smelled of pine pitch and wood smoke. Gideon looked at his daughter. "You are staying, yes, because you owe him?" Owen's jaw tightened, but Lydia answered before he could. "No, I owed him my life the day he found me." She took Owen's hand. "I am staying because he never used that debt to ask for my future." Owen looked at her, almost afraid to move. "Lydia, you don't have to prove anything." "I know." She smiled through tears. "That is why this is a choice." Nell slipped the silver compass from beneath her dress and opened it in her palm. The needle settled north. "Papa says north isn't always where you're going," she said. Gideon looked at the three of them. For once, he did not argue with direction. He shook Owen's hand. Not as a banker settling an account, as a father trusting another man with what could not be replaced. Gideon returned to Helena with less than 1/10 of his former fortune. He sold the mansion, reopened one modest banking room, and spent 6 years repaying depositors in full. He never rebuilt Harrow Exchange as an empire. He rebuilt his name as something smaller and harder to purchase. Owen and Lydia married the following spring beneath the pines near the first winter shelter. They enlarged the cabin twice. Nell became the first teacher at the mountain school, then opened a second classroom beside the pass. The shelters Lydia had stocked saved 14 travelers over the next 20 years. Gideon visited every autumn. He always brought books. He always split at least one log. And the silver compass remained with Nell until she was an old woman. People later told the story as though a wealthy young woman had been rescued by a poor mountain man. That was true. It was simply not the whole truth. Owen carried Lydia out of the snow. Lydia carried Owen back toward the living, and together they gave Gideon something no bank had ever been able to hold. Gold could count a fortune. It could never measure a man.